15th sanction package on its way from Europe to Russia with love. Second topic is a corruption, an internal enemy for Ukraine. And an interview with Jake Broe, United States Air Force veteran who served as a nuclear and missile operation officer. Good afternoon, my name is Henry Keane and we are UATV English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media in constant persuasion to deliver hot truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Christmas time, Russian missiles fly, Europe singing sanctions rhyme. Well, sorry for that, but there is at least some reason to rejoice. The Council of Europe adopted its 15th package of sanctions against Russia, targeting the Russian shadow fleet of tankers and the military-industrial complex, of course. Amen to that. The new listings include 54 persons and 30 entities responsible for actions undermining or threatening the territorial integrity, sovereignty and independence of Ukraine. The statement read, Europe has imposed in general 15 packages of sanctions targeting the Russian state and economy in response to Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This new package of sanctions targets shipping companies, helping Russia to sell its crude oil, filling Moscow's coffers amid the full-scale war. The EU also banned 52 vessels transporting Russian oil above the $60 per barrel price cap from accessing EU ports and services. Russia has largely avoided the price cap by using the fleet of older, uninsured tankers, forcing the Western countries to tighten and refine the existing sanctions, closing the loopholes. So in easy terms, the latest package is more personal, concrete and down to the ground, so to say. It further targets a chemical plant, a Russian airline company providing support to the military and several defense companies. For the first time, EU finally imposed full-scale sanctions including a travel ban and asset freeze on various Chinese actors supplying drone components and microelectronic components to Russia.
This package of sanctions is part of our response to weaken Russia's war machine and those who are enabling this war, also including Chinese companies. It shows the unity of EU member states in our continued support to Ukraine. Our immediate priority is to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position. Kaja Kallas, the EU's chief diplomat.
Individual listings include the Russian military unit responsible for a deadly strike against the Ohmandit Children's Hospital in Kyiv in July. Top managers of energy companies, individuals involved in the deportation of Ukrainian children, dissemination of propaganda and sanctions circumvention, and welcome to the club, also to senior North Korean officials. In case you didn't know, the EU sanctioned North Korean officials after Pyongyang dispatched over 10,000 troops to aid Russia's war. So North Korean soldiers recently saw actual combat with Ukraine during ground assaults in Russia's Kursk Oblast. Here are the results alive, well, almost alive.
Telemetry lost.
What a truly international friendship. Looking at all that, maybe Europe further added 32 entities to the list of those directly supporting Russia's military-industrial complex, including people and companies based in North Korea, China, India, Iran, Serbia, and the United Arab Emirates. I wonder if there are any American companies on that, but just asking. Heavy fighting on the front lines of Russia's full-scale invasion, dragging out for almost 3 years, has left thousands of Ukrainian soldiers seriously injured or killed in action. Many still fighting for years along more than 600 miles of the front line in Ukraine's east and south are exhausted as they face what Alexander Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's Armed Forces, describes as one of the most powerful Russian offensives. Earlier this year, the government stepped up mobilization to increase the army's ranks by hundreds of thousands, on top of more than 1 million currently defending the country. Yet the effort to scale up Ukrainian forces against an enemy with more manpower and weaponry has been tainted by mushrooming corruption scandals. Officials in the Ukrainian healthcare system are suspected and actually caught red-handed of taking bribes to help men avoid mobilization by obtaining fake disability. Military Social Evaluation Commission, MSEC, the state medical commission responsible for clearing men to be fit to fight. Ukrainian Special Forces sniper who goes by the call sign Bart told the Kiev independent media, responding to the alleged corrupt schemes aiding draft dodgers, the following. I quote, "We do our job on the front line because someone has to. But there are specific institutions that must do something about that corruption," he added. Zelensky has put it in even a more straightforward way. This is truly an internal enemy.
Lists of draft dodgers with fake diagnoses were found alongside millions of dollars in cash during the search of the apartment of Tetiana Krupa, the head and chief doctor of Khmelnytsky Oblast's MSEK. Law enforcement officers found money in the apartment in almost every corner, in wardrobes, drawers, niches. The State Bureau of Investigation.
Well, like Zelensky or not all you like, the bare fact is, under Zelensky's presidency, Ukraine has successfully rooted out many layers of choking bureaucracy and room for corruption with reforms that introduced digitization of many public services, most notably through the acclaimed DIA mobile phone application. Recent efforts to digitize men's registration as part of the army's mobilization efforts and to provide services to soldiers currently serving have also shown promise. The new digitalization system replacing MSEC was laid out in a reform plan approved by the government already just recently on November 20th and was already submitted as legislation to Parliament to be adopted. Jake Broe, United States Air Force veteran who served as a nuclear and missile operation officer, expert in deeds of war. Is that right, Mr. Broe? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, the pleasure is all ours. So the first question, apocalypse now or a little bit later? As it seems to me, the world is still way more concerned about how much a war in Ukraine costs instead of what it will cost if lost. I've heard that the American Senate recently ordered a calculus of sorts from a holy trinity of American intelligence agencies, FBI, CIA, and NSA, to get to figures. What it will cost if Putin will win. I'm sure both figures and facts will be devastating, but my question is, so what? I mean, will this calculus be in any way a reason for Donald Trump to not weaken military aid to Ukraine, for example?
You didn't say the word, but I think you were alluding to a potential nuclear war or World War III. And on my channel, I've been making the argument the last 3 years that there's no benefit to the Russians using a nuclear weapon, either a tactical or a larger. And it doesn't matter where Putin thinks it might benefit him, it won't. The negatives will always outweigh the benefits, which is why Russia has not used nuclear war. So you're asking about future costs, both of the NATO alliance and specifically Americans. At the moment, politically, we seem to be returning to our isolationist roots. America was isolationist prior to World War I, prior to World War II. I hope that history is not repeating and we're not heading for a larger conflict, because it can be avoided. If we give Ukraine the support and equipment they need to defeat the Russians today, we can prevent a broader war. At the moment, Russia is trying to find allies, willing to fight for them, willing to fight with them. We're seeing these North Koreans entering the battlefield, frontline combat this week in Kursk. And you're correct. There's going to be think tanks. There's going to be cost-benefit analysis. The people who understand what the true cost will be if Ukraine falls, if Russia is allowed to absorb 40 million people and trillions in untapped resources, then Russia is only going to be in a better position and stronger for the next war. Putin is not done. He's not done after Ukraine if Ukraine can't hold. And I am going to make the argument, and I hope smarter brains will prevail, that supporting Ukraine is the cheaper alternative. It is the alternative that saves more lives in the events that Russia keeps these wars going and attacks a NATO country next.
NATO countries next. Oh my God, being from Latvia, born and raised in Latvia, I know what you mean. And we don't want to go back to Soviet times. No way. But Donald Trump, the only thing that you can predict about Donald Trump, that he's unpredictable. But somehow, correct me if I'm wrong, even though things that he says might sound awful to Ukraine in here, the things Trump does are actually turning not too bad, or even sometimes very good for Ukraine. Would you agree with that?
If any of my subscribers are watching, they themselves are probably shocked. I was on my channel. I was very harsh towards Donald Trump because of the rhetoric being used by people surrounding him. Comments made by RFK Jr. or Vivek Ramaswamy or Elon Musk.
True.
Or any of these people, JD Vance. I judged Trump based on the company that Trump kept. But Trump himself was always very vague. He was always saying, I can end the conflict in 24 hours. If I was president, this never would have happened. And with American politics, this is probably true in other countries, but there's a difference between campaigning and governing. When you're just campaigning, you can say whatever you want. You're not responsible for anything. You're not in power. You're not in office. And in many ways, if things get worse or bad, that actually helps you politically, because you can then criticize the party in power and you can potentially win more votes in the next election. But upon winning, and Donald Trump did decisively win on November 5th, well, now all the responsibility is his. He's going to be taking office on January 20th. And if the situation doesn't improve, if it doesn't get better, Donald Trump is aware that the American people are going to blame him. So Donald Trump, to his credit, is taking this very serious. He appointed, or is going to appoint, Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. I think Marco Rubio as Secretary of State is a good pick. And then his best decision, which is why I'm incredibly grateful for President Trump at this moment, is he chose retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg to be his negotiator, his special envoy concerning what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. Retired General Keith Kellogg, he's 80, but he was Mike Pence's national security advisor during Trump's first administration. So he is very familiar with the situation with Russia. He supports Ukraine. He's visited Ukraine in 2023. He has ideas. He has connections. He's talking to the correct people in order to broker some kind of negotiation, ceasefire, or whatever. This is going to be what Trump is going to attempt. He's going to attempt direct negotiations with the Russians to get some kind of favorable outcome, hopefully for Ukraine. But the question is, what if the Russians don't cooperate? What if the Russians don't feel like ending the hostility and stopping the conflict? In real time, we're going to get Donald Trump's reaction when Vladimir Putin tells him no. I think Putin is going to tell him no. I think at the moment, for some reason, Putin believes the war is going well for him and he's winning. I think that's delusional given the costs for taking that wheat field and the costs for taking that tree line. But Putin has done the calculations. He thinks it's to his benefit to continue the war. So I think, and I'm hoping, and we can nudge President Trump in this direction, when the Russians don't stop the hostilities, Ukraine needs more aid. Ukraine needs more weapons. Ukraine needs more support. That's the political battle we're going to have here in America in February.
Right. Well, you were talking about the North Koreans. You probably have seen that video, dead Russians lying next to dead North Koreans. Well, what is happening now is Russia invaded Ukraine, and without security guarantees, what would stop Russia to invade even more into Ukraine? And would that be a reason for Trump to accept that option of Ukraine when Russia invades Ukraine fully and just observes the country? Is that will be an option for a ceasefire? Because he says the world and the president of the United States wants the ceasefire. What is ceasefire for the world, do you think, Mr. Broe?
I think for the average American, they don't understand how big Ukraine is and how a freeze in the conflict, a ceasefire, or a DMZ is impractical. When Americans think of the word DMZ, it sounds great because we think of North
Right.
and South Korea. A DMZ of about 250 or 300 kilometers. That is manageable. You can mine that. You can man that. But with Ukraine, the current front lines are like 1,800 kilometers, not even counting the border with Belarus, which Russia did attack from, not even counting Moldova. There's Russian troops technically stationed in Transnistria. So the idea of freezing the conflict or a DMZ or it's not practical, and I think Donald Trump is eventually going to understand that. People like General Keith Kellogg, he's the president. He has to do what he says, but I think Trump is going to get frustrated in these meetings where he's going to be met with the harsh realities, the realities that Ukrainians face, the realities that the Biden administration has faced, and then we have to figure out what's a better alternative. If you just logically think through this war enough, you will come to the same conclusion that the only acceptable outcome will be that Russia withdraws all of their forces back to their internationally recognized 1991 borders. If any other outcome or scenario occurs, then this isn't over. It's just going to start up again in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, whatever. Do the Russians have the capacity to get this war going again if there is a freeze in the conflict? And I think that's what Putin is going to dedicate the rest of his life to doing. How much longer will Putin live? 10, 15, 20 years of natural causes, who knows? But he's committed. He's never going to another UN General Assembly in New York City. He's never going to another G8 or G7 summits. He's never going to probably Davos in Switzerland again. This is what he's dedicating his life to, destroying Ukraine, taking as much of their people and land and resources as possible in order to make Russia great again. And at some point, the Russian people have to realize that the costs outweighed any potential benefits. And the average life of the average Russian, which gets worse every single day inside Russia, we have to reach their breaking point where they will no longer tolerate this from their fascist government, basically.
Well, do you really believe, Mr. Broe, that if Putin dies tomorrow, the Russian ways will change in any way to the better?
If Putin were to disappear by some means, I do think the oligarchs would have a conversation about, once again, costs and benefits.
Right.
I think to the average oligarch, they're not thinking about empire. They're not thinking about the glory days of the czars and trying to return Russia to their greatness or whatever. They're just thinking about dollars. They're thinking about their next super yacht. They're thinking about their kids being able to, go to Harvard or Yale or Oxford. So their lives have become significantly more difficult. They keep getting sanctions. They keep having assets frozen. No one wants to do business with them. So I think if Putin were to, if Swan Lake came on TV inside Russia, and then 3 days later, some nice man in a nice suit came to the podium and explained to the Russian people that something bad happened to Putin, and this guy is now in charge. I think the oligarchs would jump at this to just kind of find a way to reset, de-escalate, and then start recuperating their losses. I mean, the opportunity has been there the last 3 years. There's been so many off-ramps being offered by Schultz and Macron and even Biden to de-escalate and try to stabilize, normalize. Because unfortunately, the world needs Russia. We need their oil and gas. We need their mineral exports. We need their agriculture. They're part of the global supply chain for so many important raw materials. And the West just wants to do business. Capitalist economies are concerned about their quarterly and annual earnings reports. And this war has been devastating. It's been terrible, both for the Russian economy, but also for the G7, for the European Union. There is no economic benefit to outweigh the costs.
I agree.
What Russia has lost. And I do think if Putin were to be removed from the equation, the billionaires and the oligarchs would try to talk to people and find a way out of this, try and get sanction relief. And if they just took all of their troops back to the 1991 borders, they would get that sanction relief, I think.
Well, amen to that. But maybe we should start talking to oligarchs to do something to Putin on this Christmas. That would be a nice gift to the world. Well, anyway.
They know they're all being monitored by the FSB. None of them are willing to have that conversation because they know they would disappear first.
The same old story. Well, history is repeating itself from time to time. Well, I appreciate you talking to you. It is a real pleasure. You're clearing the fog, and you really are an expert. Thank you so very much for your time and dedication for Ukraine. I see that flag on your wall. Thank you, Mr. Broe.
Thanks for having me back on.
Thank you. We talk soon. Goodbye. Was Jake Broe, United States Air Force veteran who served as a nuclear and missile operation officer, and we are UATV English. Stay tuned for more. Well, that will be all for today. Thank you so very much and for your time with us. My name is Henry Keane and we are UATV English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media source always in persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Please like, share and comment. Your voice matters as it helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. In turn, please stay safe and tune for more very soon. Goodbye.